Hi, welcome to Grubb for Thought. Today we have a very loaded episode and we are back with Marilla. Yay! Hi, Marilla. Our in-house nutritional specialist. We call her multiple things. And with Marilla, we have Rachel, who's our marketing associate.
Hello.
And for those of you wondering why they're sitting together, they live together. They're cousins. And and we've kind of infiltrated into their family, making sure that slowly everyone in their family capable of working with Grubbable can actually start working for Grubbable. So we love the family, just so everyone knows. Yay, it's going to be us girls talking about a few important topics, very topical, very people have different opinions about it. But I think today our goal is to kind of just address and understand these different issues and kind of really understand some of the science behind it, how it came about, and then not really taking a stance or choosing one or the other, but just kind of understanding and making ourselves better aware of these things so that we can make an informed decision. If you want to do gluten-free, we at least want to know why we want to do gluten-free. And if you want to be, a low-fat person, why we want to be a low-fat person. So that's the two topics that we're going to do today. It's going to be a two-parter. So part one would be us talking about all things gluten-free and whether it makes sense for all of us to try this or not. And the part two would be talking about low fat versus full fat foods. And a big part of that would be the discussion around dairy. And it's just kind of letting us understand what makes sense for us. If you want to go through a particular diet, does it really make sense for our body? And can we put ourselves through all of that? All of this takes a lot of commitment. So that's kind of a full packed show today. Oh my God. Yay. Okay, so before we get started, just wanted to kind of throw some light on a few words that usually come up when we talk about different types of dietary lifestyles, right? Some people call it alternative lifestyles because it's not what is always perceived as traditional or natural. Some people call it fads, some people call it trends, some people call it reality. So that kind of made us think about how the whole local food movement and the sustainability food movement has passed through these tests over the past 10-15 years. What started off as a fad with people wanting to support their local farmers or taking pride in their local origins became a trend. Everyone started doing local, and then now it's become a reality because people understand the benefits of choosing local, about how little adulteration food goes through, how faster it gets to your plate, and how natural it is. It's got the least amount of industrial processing and most nutrient dense. And the same thing goes to the sustainable lifestyle. So because at Grubbable, we stand for local and sustainable, it's kind of a matter of pride for us that now we've finally reached the point where most people at least understand that it's become a reality. Like people know that it's, beneficial to us. So that gives the segue to all the good stuff that we want to talk about, which is the loaded topic of gluten-free. It's become a very topical thing. I almost see an article almost every day on the internet in some journal or the other, where people are constantly discussing about gluten-free, whether it makes sense for everyone to be gluten-free, and why people go for the gluten-free diet, right? Okay, so let's get started. It's just going to be an open discussion. We want to learn from you, Marilla, some of the things that, some of the science behind this, what makes sense. And then, it's up to us whether we want to do it. If for a lot of people, they say they feel really, really good when they do a gluten-free diet. So we don't want to take a stance and say, I don't think it makes sense for anyone who's not, gluten intolerant to do it. But I think we just want to kind of understand what the whole reason, is for this. Okay, so can you first start off by explaining what gluten is?
Okay, so in simpler terms, gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, or rye. So you're going to find this in products like bread, cereal, pizza, even beer. Gluten can also be hidden in things. Sometimes you'll find it in vitamins, salad dressings, sauces, or even your toothpaste too. People
Shampoos and conditioners I've heard as well.
Yeah.
In what?
Shampoos and conditioners.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
It's everywhere.
No, it's strange.
Gluten's everywhere. Gluten's everywhere. So, some people choose to be gluten-free because, it might make them feel like they have more energy, or perhaps some people do it for weight loss purposes or to feel overall healthier. A gluten-free diet really consists of avoiding all products that contain wheat, barley, or rye. And like I said before, that isn't a lot of products. So it is a pretty tight dietary restrictions on what you're eating. So I guess the question is, does being gluten-free make someone healthier?
Yeah.
It depends. There's a disease called celiac disease, where if you do have celiac disease, it's necessary to cut out gluten from your diet in order to feel healthier and to maintain a lifestyle that you can, have better, basically.
Yeah.
So celiac disease is an autoimmune disease that disturbs and harms the small intestines when gluten is ingested.
Yeah.
This could have long-term side effects such as nerve damage, osteoporosis. It interferes with food absorption as well. And, basically when somebody eats gluten, they start to feel really sick almost very immediately.
Wow.
And I know Rachel mentioned that even if, you're out at a restaurant and gluten just touches a plate or something like that, the sensitivity for celiac disease is that real.
Yeah, it's like important to realize that gluten is sticky. It's very, very sticky. So even if gluten has touched a plate before, just washing that plate for someone with celiac disease is not enough.
Oh, wow. So just ingesting it is like,
right. This is why a lot of people who get diagnosed with celiacs have to get all new pots and pans, plates, Tupperware, everything, because gluten, you're not necessarily going to see it all the time, but it is extremely sticky, and the residue of it can still be there. And if you have something like celiacs, that's incredibly detrimental to you going forward.
Okay. Wow. And so celiac is like the severe form of gluten intolerance, but then there are also the milder forms, right? Like there are a lot of people, I think, Rachel, you yourself used to be one, where you can be intolerant or sensitive, where it's not perhaps as severe as celiac, but you still have some sort of a reaction to gluten every time you eat it.
Yeah, so if you have a true gluten sensitivity, if you do ingest gluten, some of the symptoms can occur in the respiratory system, on the skin, but you're not going to get that intestinal damage as you do with something as severe as celiac.
Okay.
So only about 1% of the population has celiac disease, but a lot of people are gluten sensitive or even have a wheat allergy too.
Okay. So even if you're gluten sensitive, the best way forward is to kind of really stop eating gluten, as in stop taking anything that has gluten in it. So wheat, rye, and barley.
Yes.
Okay.
But
there's no other medicine, I know it's like, yeah.
Well, I believe there are medications you can take to help with if you have more digestive issues with that, or allergic issues with that, so that it's not as detrimental initially. But I don't think there's just like the gluten pill.
Yeah.
You take it and you're all cured.
Would have been great, right? Then you can eat bread and the gluten pill.
People give up pizza, they just don't. So
I don't.
I don't.
No, and that's a big deal because wheat is a staple, and especially here, right? Wheat is like, for instance, in most parts of Asia, rice is the bigger grain that people eat. So a lot of gluten allergies are, people are still not aware of gluten allergies in those parts of the world because, you're so dependent on rice most of the time, but wheat is also a part of your diet. But here, predominantly wheat is pretty much in almost everything. Mm-hmm. So kind of cutting that out is like cutting a big part of your, eating lifestyle. And I did read a bunch of articles that say, how expensive it is to actually have a gluten-free lifestyle, because every other product that could be a substitute or a replacement is a lot more expensive. And like you said, you have to, kind of go through your entire laundry list of all the products that you use, from food to your hair to toothpaste, and kind of get rid of stuff. And this was news to me that you had to buy new pots and pans and everything. So you have to kind of have like a, mini lifestyle of your own. If you're living with, two other people, then you're kind of having your own eating lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So does it make sense for everyone to, become gluten-free? And what are you giving up on? Like, what are the essential nutrients that go missing when you choose a gluten-free lifestyle?
Well, in America, a lot of our gluten is in whole wheat, which is a large part of our diet. So that helps us maintain dietary fiber.
Yeah.
A lot of Americans in the United States are already deficient in fiber. So by removing gluten from your diet, you're kind of exacerbating that deficiency already. Now, you can replace that fiber with other things like vegetables and other grains such as quinoa that does not contain gluten, and beans and things like that, but it requires that extra effort and cognizance to do that while you're removing wheat from your diet.
Yeah. And whole grain has a lot of cardiovascular benefits, right? Like it helps with heart disease and all of that. So some of that goes missing as well. And wheat, for most part, it's a energy supplement, right? For most of us, we all feel really, really pumped up after eating a ton of carbs because it kind of fuels your body. So the same can happen with other whole grains as well. So if you're kind of being cognizant, like you said, of trying to use better whole grains that can, help you maintain your gluten-free lifestyle, then does that help? Like, I don't think you're really losing a lot of nutrients in that way, are you? Like if you're taking supplements, you're taking the extra fiber, extra calcium, making sure that everything else is taken care of.
Yeah, there is ways to make up for that fiber deficiency when you are gluten-free or if you have to be gluten-free. Definitely, yes. Mm-hmm.
What about all the articles, like some of the articles that say, or studies that say that it doesn't make sense to say that if you go gluten-free, you feel better, or there isn't any scientific backing to say that you actually have better energy, because you're kind of substituting it with something similar that could reproduce similar results in your body. So it should ideally be the same results, right?
Yes, there are studies that say, if you do have celiac disease or a gluten sensitivity or a wheat allergy, then yes, you will feel better by removing gluten from your diet.
Yeah.
If it is not confirmed that you have one of those ailments with gluten, then there's really no scientific backing saying that you're going to feel better or worse by removing gluten from your diet.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think the real question is, when a lot of people are getting on the bandwagon for losing weight, does that really make sense? Because, you're kind of substituting something like that with something else. So it's not really helping you lose weight, is it? Or does it actually help you lose weight?
So with removing gluten from your diet, like I said, which is in cereal, bread, pasta, so you are removing a lot of excess carbs out of your diet. But if you choose to replace those products with gluten-free products, sometimes companies make up for the lack of gluten by replacing it with excess sugar, starches, fats to make up for the lack of taste. So you might be adding additional calories there, where in some cases you could gain weight.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So gluten-free, on some things, has now in some ways become like a trigger word of like, this is healthy, and it's not. That's not what gluten-free means.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the real issue here. I think over the years, a lot of things which we now call alternative eating lifestyles have also been associated with being healthy. Now, a lot of that is debatable because the true reason for something like this was because they discovered an actual disease, an actual intolerance that people could not digest a certain section of foods because their body was not built for it, or they had some deficient lacking for it. So that kind of started the whole trend for gluten-free, and it's kind of caught on. In fact, I found this article that said in 2014, the number of people who had adopted a gluten-free lifestyle purely for diet reasons, for losing weight, not for a healthier lifestyle, for losing weight, had tripled, while the number of people with celiac disease the rate of that had remained the same. So people with celiac disease were increasing at the same rate, while the number of people who were adopting this purely out of diet reasons had tripled. So it's kind of become a place where I think people want to do it because they feel like they can easily lose weight.
Yeah, they hear carbs, they think gluten, they think carbs, they think carbs, lose weight.
Yeah, but then there's carb in everything else. So there's carb in rice, there's carb in everything else that is, typically gluten-free. Quinoa is high in protein. It's a great grain, but that's also carb. Like there's carbs in potatoes. There's carbs in all of that stuff, sweet potatoes. So I guess the question is like, I kind of struggle with where, whether it's what's right, what's not, I guess here, probably because I do know, like I have a friend who is not gluten intolerant, but she started doing a gluten-free diet and she felt better. She used to say that her moods had improved, like she was a lot more positive. She wasn't as irritable as she used to be before. And she started seeing all those changes post she started a gluten-free diet. Now, there's nothing like I can't scientifically prove that. She can't scientifically prove that, but I do know that she said that this was happening to her. So I've kind of seen that happen to her, and she kind of, but of course, along with that, she changed a lot of other things in her lifestyle, which could have triggered it. Like she started working out a lot more, and she started, watching what she was eating. So I guess there's no clear way to say what's right or not, but I think it's best to understand what reasons are, lie behind something like this.
Well, gluten or anything in general can affect someone's body differently across the board, right? So if she's feeling better, that's great, but perhaps if I cut out gluten from my diet, I might feel not as great as she is. But like you said, she was adding things like exercise and a couple other things into her lifestyle too that could have the effect as well.
Yeah.
It's the chicken of the year.
Yes. But if you do feel like you have a gluten allergy or you're gluten sensitive or a wheat allergy or possibly have celiac disease, it's really best to go see a doctor before you start becoming gluten free. Otherwise, that might skew your test results for evidence and proof that you have an allergy or celiac or something like that.
So you should be actually eating gluten to actually identify an insensitivity to gluten. Okay, that makes sense. So when in doubt, always go to the doctor, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So yeah, this is interesting. So I think it's the best argument here is to kind of choose a lifestyle if it's really required. And everything in moderation is always good. So nobody wants to be eating and, definitely not cutting out whole grains is, doesn't make sense. But yeah, like, white flour and white bread, stuff like that definitely will change your moods for sure, will help your digestive system. So I guess if you're trying something and if it's making you feel better, I guess there's no bad argument there, right? Like if it's helping you and if you think you're having a positive outlook on life. But it's always important to probably consult a doctor and then figure out if this is the best way for you. Turns out a few months into the diet, maybe, you're nutrient deficient in some other way, and it may be, affecting you in a way that you probably haven't even discovered yet. So, okay, that makes sense. So, cheeky question, would you guys go gluten-free ever?
I have been gluten-free for a period in my life.
How long was it?
A couple periods in my life, not consistent. When I was younger, it was more consistently. As I've gotten older, I don't feel that I don't have as much sensitivity to it, and don't see the immediate need to be gluten free, but more of like what you said, of moderation of everything. So, I have family members though that swear by not eating gluten, and they love it, and then. Well, then there's this. So
personally, I would find it very difficult to become fully gluten-free because I like cereal and bread and pizza. But I do keep all of those things in moderation. I'm never going to choose white bread at the store. I will always choose the whole wheat bread. Will I eat pizza every night? Probably not.
Yeah, so, you won't look like this if you ate pizza every night. Yeah, I think the same goes for me. Like I said, wheat and rice are our staples. And I don't think I can fully give up. But again, at the same time, I don't see myself eating, white bread. It's most of the time it's some form of whole grain that I choose. So I guess staying healthy, staying smarter is probably what I would go for. And I think I probably would never choose gluten-free because of my lack of willpower, I guess. Maybe like someday if I want to have all of that stuff.
When Rachel was gluten-free, in an effort to help her, I was eating all the gluten in the house. Chips, bread, it just all went to me. I didn't want her to be tempted by gluten.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think so. Like, yeah, it'll have to come from the doctor for me to become gluten-free. So.
Yes, I will have to agree there for sure.
Okay, so this was great. I think a really good conversation, and I think we need to have more such conversations because it's all about awareness, and the more we know, the better we are, the smarter choices we make. And it could be something as simple as gluten-free to something as important as what we had with Dr. Khan for vegan, whether it makes sense to do that. And ultimately, we never say this or the other. It's really up to each one of us. Our body makeups are different. Our willpowers are different. Our taste buds are different. So whatever works for us, right?
Yes. Right.
All right. So let's end this part right here and move on to the next part, which is a similar discussion where we're going to talk about low fat versus full fat and what makes sense. And what's the, a little bit of science behind it as well. So see you at part 2.
Check out the link below to figure out part 2, to find part 2.